All right. Hello, everybody. Sorry about that. My computer rebooted in the middle of the night, and so like all my connected devices are messed up. So let's see if we can get. There we go. There's my key light. That'll help a little bit. And ooh, I might have just killed the stream by changing that. Uh-oh. We'll find out. Hopefully you can still see me and hear me okay. Let me know in the chat. Hey JT, how's it going? Let's also get a better light going on back here, because that is not what I want. It's kind of flickering. Let's see here. Which one is this? It's this one and that. Oh, there we go. Much smoother. Laravel, that Laravel color. What is that Laravel color? Like Laravel red? What? I'm sure Taylor's got a cool name for that. I don't know what it is. All right, let's get situated here. Let's bring this up and let's go to workspace and let's go to curl converter. Okay, so first of all, let's pull down, oh, again, I rebooted. So let's pull down what we need. I think, JT, I think it was you that submitted some PRs already for this repo. This repo is out there, so if anybody wants to help out, it's under Laravel Shift. It's the curl converter, just like in the project here. So I've kind of been hacking away on it. Again, I think JT, I think you added some more options, silent and user, being able to specify the user and all that kind of stuff. So I also kind of worked out that DTO object a little bit more. So I think today let's work on the formatter, and let's just try to get to a place where for a very, very simple curl request, we can see that this is working. And again, we'll just kind of visually see that this is working. It might not be something that has the form and everything yet. To that point, someone else, I think in the comments of the previous video, or maybe they emailed me, reached out and said, you know, hey, this should be a package. That way you can just actually like do PHP artisan shift curl and then paste the whole command, because we're making it a command, and it would echo out the HTTP. A lot more lightweight. You know, you can install it globally or something. You know, maybe like that. So yeah, I think that could be cool. So we'll look into that at the very end. But for now, I think it's just easy to throw it in a Laravel app and kind of, you know, we can kind of see this all work. So, but in the end, it'll probably be a package, and it will probably be a web page on Shift site to kind of submit via a form if you don't want the package. Because I think, you know, I do think the command line, just as a bit of a tangent, I do think the command line is obviously the preferred medium for developers. But the thing is, not everybody has their command line set up, you know, the way other devs do. Maybe they don't have PHP installed. You know, recent versions of macOS, for example, don't have PHP out of the box. You know, you got to do the homebrew dance, or you got to use Docker or whatever. So unfortunately, because of that, on some systems, you know, command line maybe isn't as easy to run certain commands as it might be on others. So I think the web bit still has kind of that best example. So plus it gives Shift some SEO, you know, mojo, little SEO juice, right? I just finished my coffee, so I'm feeling good. Okay, let's jump into this controller. I kind of just have this converter controller, and this is what I made. I just made an app model request, and you know, you might be saying, oh well, this isn't really a model. Yes and no. I find in my applications I tend to throw things underneath models that might not be necessarily a database-backed model or an Eloquent-backed model in the Laravel sense. But it's still a data object, and it's where data objects go. And I've never crossed that bridge of like the whole domain world. And I like this to feel like Laravel. So I can put it in models, I can give it a create, and you pass in a data array, and you get one back, and you're able to, you know, call all these accessor methods on it, right? If you make it look and you make it feel like a model, why not throw it in models, right? Who cares if it's backed by Eloquent or not? Like, I can't run queries on it, fine, but I I never would, right? It's just not that kind of object. So I don't know. I think that's you know, again, quick and easy. For a very large application, again, I understand if you might want to jump to like some kind of domain thing or create your own DTOs folder or some crap like that. But for a single object like this, I think it's fine. And then the other thing, this kind of comes from Taylor. I think he tweeted this a couple of years back, and I had a discussion with him on it as well. I used to put in services down here, like app services, but he likes, if you look at a lot of his projects, he just has this like support folder that's kind of the catch-all. So this is what we're going to work on today, this static HTTP formatter, right? And basically it's just going to take an HTTP, it's going to take a request and kind of give you back an HTTP call. In this case, it's really just going to be a string, and this is kind of going to be the beef. And again, right now these are very high-level objects with just like a simple single static method. From a testing perspective, some might be nervous about that, but we're really just going to do like what traditionally people would call end-to-end test or just an integration test. We're really just going to call this command with everything and expect to get the HTTP output back, right? So like there's no reason to test any of this wiring, and that's going to make it, you know, again, more flexible because we're not kind of saying, oh, the request thing called this thing and that, and that's where a static method might be a little bit weird to deal with. So today what I would love to see is just being able to just call this and real basic curl commands. I think that'll be the goal for like the next 30, 40 minutes here. I don't have as much time as I do on Wednesdays, but let's leave that to do. So I think for now, what would be really cool is if we just got this to output like the right stuff, right? And so I think what we could do here is just like an sprintf. I like to do this in my projects anytime I'm like building code. We're always going to have this HTTP, right? And then here we're going to have the method. At the very least, we know that we're going to have, you know, this kind of thing here, right? And we could even probably go so far as to quote that. And then after that, you know, we're potentially going to have, you know, some additional methods, maybe, and then finally like a semicolon. So I think at the heart of it, it's going to look like this. So we can make this method be super, super simple. It's really just going to be this, and what we could do is say, yeah, I think we could just do here, we could say something like this method, or we could even go so far as to say like str2 lower. Let's use Laravel string classes. That'll be helpful. We'll just say lower on, not this, sorry, request method. So that's going to get the request method. We're going to str2 lower that. That's pretty straightforward one. And then this is going to be str, or well, not even str. We're just going to take the request as is. And we're basically going to get the URL. That's simple enough. And then here is where we might want to call something like self chain, you know, options or something. And we're going to pass that the request. And this is where it's going to get pretty beefy, right? So let's make this method. It'll be a private static method, no big deal. And for here, let's maybe do something. What else could we support? We could support like adding a header. That's probably going to be the most common bit. Ooh, you know what? This actually isn't that simple. That's actually not that simple. It's not always just the URI. It's actually going to be, we do need to generate some stuff here. So we would have to say like request or something, or generate request. Let's stick with these words: generate, options. Yeah, okay, let's change that. Generate, we might call that build or write or output. We'll change that later, but for now we'll get a little technical with generate. And this is also going to get request. And we'll generate the request. So here the point is like, if it's post, you know, we're going to need to do like the URI or the URL plus data, right? So there are ways in which that we would send that. We also would need to, you know, like this is what's going to take forever, and I probably need a lot of like help in the PRs. But this would be like, what if it's, you know, JSON? We would want to automatically like tack on the like, you know, as JSON header or something, or sorry, the content type or whatnot. So yeah, I think there's going to be some interesting things there. So yeah, maybe let's focus on this part. Maybe generate options shouldn't. I mean, ultimately, it's gonna like take a bunch of options. You know, we're gonna like figure out all the different options that get chained. This method's gonna be pretty beefy, and we would ultimately return like, well, we would say if empty options, you know, return nothing. These are all returning strings, so we can just keep that. Let's get this out of the way so I got some more room here, because I am typing like a crazy person right now. All right. So if options are empty, then we would return nothing. We don't want to like chain anything, but otherwise, if it's not empty, we would actually return a pretty interesting like implosion of those options. So we would return like a PHP EOL dot and implode and this is where it gets weird. We'll just say 4 spaces and kind of like the chain of that, right? Because theoretically options is going to contain the call that needs to be made. Like it's going to build up, you know, the part that says add header or whatever, depending on what kind of option gets passed in, right? We're going to parse through all these, potentially build up some options. If there aren't any, we would return an empty string. Otherwise, we would return the implosion of kind of that on its own line as well. So we would say this like options. So they would get chained together with a new line, an indentation, and then the arrow function to kind of like, or sorry, the arrow, PHP arrow, to kind of generate that out. And then we would start with a new line just because it's an option. We may turn that into a collection pipeline later. I don't know. Sometimes when you do like these implodes, it feels kind of gross. And I know Laravel has like a pretty cool join method. Okay, so here we could simply just return request URL. That's going to be the most basic thing for now. But like, this is the to-do part. But let's just kind of prove that we're on the right track. I think I've kind of hacked together a lot of code here, spiked a lot of things. So let's simplify that. That looks good. Request is never used. That's fine. What's wrong with oh, it needs a string. There you go. Life's happy now. Okay. So theoretically, we should be able to call this controller, and it's going to output the code that we need. I don't know if it's going to be easier to run this or for me to just kind of like continue to hack at it. I think what's going to be easier is to just throw this in the command for now. Let's do that. Let's just throw this in the command. That way I can just run the command directly. And that's going to start to lead to this thing being a package anyway. The controller would probably end up being in Shift's code base, and then I would make this be make this depend upon that package. That's probably going to be ideal. So even though I'll leave this controller in there for now, let's go to this curl command just for testing purposes. And instead of outputting this line, let's just kind of hack this code together here. And we won't even JSON encode it anymore because it's it's already what we need. So we could just do this and pass in the JSON. And then here we would say this line code. There we go. All right, let's fire up Docker and watch my iMac take off. I'm hearing some stuff in the chat, so let's see what people are saying. L29 can't work because request is not the HTTP request in the controller. Yeah, I'm not worried about the controller right now, but I'll take a look at it later. All right. Okay, so let's see if this fires up and actually just like, again, it's not going to work for a post request. That's the part we'll try to work on next. But for a super generic curl call where we just pass in the URL, it should actually give us back what we want. So let's just see if we're there. We'll just do some manual testing. And again, it's going to be pretty easy to get all this to run later on. So let's do PHP artisan curl. And we don't even really need to pass it anything. We would just pass it like HTTPS laravelshift.com. And there we go. We got an HTTP GET on laravelshift.com. It's not in quotes, so let's go fix that. So let's go back to our HTTP call, and at its simplest, we would have like, or here's where we can do the fancy quotes. And I still have spaces between my concatenation characters. I can't help myself. This will be formatted to Laravel's standard though. Okay, so that fixes that. But now if we were to do something like, whoops, like this, where we said something like X post, there we go. And even if we do post, we should still get the lowercase version. Great, okay. So as we can see though, post is not 100% because the data is not gonna be captured there. So if we said something like curl equals curl me, that doesn't end up getting passed in the post data. So we need to, let's get this working where we actually pass this over here as an array, I think. Let's go double check that. HTTP Laravel client. All right, request data. Get query parameters. Oh, query parameters could actually, that's interesting. I didn't even think about that. Sending form URL encoded request. There we go. So as form, that's nice. And then we've got with body, multi-part requests. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff we're going to end up needing to do here. Oh, here's a with headers. That's nice. So yeah, I think we might be able to tackle the post data and this as well. So let's work on this post data real quick. And then maybe we'll work on headers if I got enough time. What time is it? Oh, we're good. We're good. I'm going to go till like 11:15. So we got like 20 minutes. Okay, so if it's data, we'll handle the form data a bit later. Let's just say for now, if empty request data, and we might make like a has data or something later, but if that's empty, then we pretty much know right away to just send this back, right? I think that's fair. So otherwise we know that we have data, and now we would kind of need to analyze that data and parse it in a way. What would be really nice is if we already knew data. Let's just do, sorry, I'm thinking out loud here. I'm curious if I can like get away with var export here, and I don't think I can, but let's try it. So let's say something like, this is going to be quoted. of course. So we know that we would pass in the URI, and then at this point we would know that we would pass in the data. So let's say request URL. I keep saying URI. Maybe I should change the name of that. And let's say like var export. Again, this isn't gonna look pretty, but let's kind of just see what we get, right? We'll say data and true. Oops. Data and true. Return. My chat's in the way. Hold on a sec. Let's get that semicolon. Let's kind of see what this looks like. I think this is going to look pretty gross. It's not terrible, but it's pretty gross. So it's the old array syntax, and it's a 0 here, which, you know, not awesome. I think I've got like a array formatter inside of Blueprint. I might steal that code here in a little bit. I think for now we'll kind of leave that alone. Why analyze it? It's already in array format, so you should just be able to tack it on, shouldn't you? No, you have to format it. I mean, we're trying to take you know, something that's in PHP data land and turn it into a string. So and as far as the parsing, what I'm talking about is this. I mean, you can pass data, you know, as a string. I could put an ampersand in here and pass data all in one. Ideally, we would chunk that out and turn it into an array. So I don't think it's really the responsibility of this object to do that. Meaning I don't think it's this class. I don't think it's the responsibility of this class to do that. I think the parsing of the data should happen higher up. I should just be able to ask for data and have the key value pairs, or just a raw data maybe, and that would help kind of know what I was talking about up here, like if it is a JSON request or whatnot. So I think there should be some pre-parsing that happens here, and I think var export's not really going to get us where we want to go. But it's kind of close, and I like that it kind of breaks it on multiple lines potentially. So I think it's something like that. So this isn't necessary. Whoops. This isn't necessarily hard to parse. I think PHP has like all sorts of built-in string methods, but I think it's like str parse even, or it's like parse URL. Yeah. I think there's a way to parse the data string. They'll break stuff out for you. One of these methods, maybe it's parse string. Yeah, there it is. I think this is it. Uh-oh, what happened? Oh no, all good. Yeah, see, there's a way to take this exact type of string and just call parse string, and I would get a key value array. So I think this is perfect for what we want to do. So basically I just need to call this potentially higher up in the code if I notice, you know, that it's of a certain type. Now, if I notice that it starts with, you know, JSON brackets or whatever, curly braces, like, then I probably wouldn't want to call parse string on it. So I think there's some pre-parsing, I'm going to call it, that I would want to do on this. So I don't think it's worth it to see how I change this into whatever else. I mean, technically speaking, while super, super gross, this is, you know, valid. This is valid PHP. I mean, you'd never write code like that, but it is valid PHP. So I'm going to leave that alone for a minute. And let's just go play around with the options and see how close we are here. So let's say something like if request headers, we would want to do something along the lines of like options equals with headers, and we would pass in kind of the same thing actually. We would just pass in the result of var exporting request headers true. I keep doing that. Not that. Now, again, there might need to be some pre-processing for headers, because you could set a header for content type, but we could handle that another way in, in HTTP with the HTTP client. So like you might be able to just say as or accept JSON, right? Instead of having to pass this content type. So I think that's kind of nice instead of saying with headers. So again, there's all sorts of fancy little streamlines we can do. So, but for now, let's just kind of see if this behaves the way we want it to by tacking on that with headers. So let's go back up here and we'll say something like -h, and we can say content type : application JSON. Oh, all right. Implode argument 2 must be typed string given. What did I break here? Options. Oh, let's make that an array, shall we? Let's try that again. Okay, cool. With headers is there, but unfortunately it does not have that prefixing bit here. So yeah, this is where this gets kind of gross, because really it needs to be that plus the implosion of multiple things. So again, kind of gross. So here we go. Here's an example. Again, these arrays are super, super nasty, but we're getting to a place where it's going to do a post request. It's going to tack on these things. So we can kind of see how we would start to gain momentum here. But similar to the form data, right, we would need to pre-process or pre-parse these as well to kind of get those headers out. And I think that's where this DTO object is probably going to start to shine. Right now it's pretty dumb, but I think there's an opportunity here to say things like, is JSON or whatever, or something like that, or accepts JSON. And I can just call this, it gives us a Boolean, and it's very easy for this HTTP, class to kind of dump those kind of things out instead of having to figure it out itself. So I think if we pre-parse these and we kind of do some helpful methods on the request object to say like, is sending JSON or is using JSON or something like that, or accepts JSON, right? Some of these checks here could end up being a lot easier. So I don't think it should necessarily pull it out of headers. I think we're still going to probably have to do something like that here. So we'll just say something like to do what about headers that have helper methods, that have HTTP helper methods. For example, what was that one? Accepts JSON. Yeah, perfect. Accept JSON. There we go. All right, I think that's interesting. All right, let's see how we're doing here. What do we got? With headers. Yeah, this might be something where the options all happen first and then get is, or the post bit is chained on it. So yeah, why don't we fix that for a minute? So let's flop this, and then we'll say here, we'll do something like that. And that actually allows us to kind of get rid of this prefix because it's going to be chained right up against there. But now, this is the part that potentially would need to kick down another line. So what's interesting now is if we did generate a bunch of options, do we just allow this to, I don't know, what do people think about that formatting? A lot of these HTTP a lot of the examples in the docs, they just keep chaining. But I mean, these are pretty straightforward. I mean, how do people feel about that output? See, I was thinking, stack it, like multi-line. But a lot of these examples are just, they're only calling 2 methods. But I wonder, I don't know, what do people think? Let me know in the chat. So let me demonstrate what this would look like if we flipped it around. So if you flip this around, with headers is here, and then it is stacked the way we want it to. So I think stacked makes sense. Again, there could be some optimization. There could be some optimization later that if you don't, or if you're only calling one simple thing, like maybe it doesn't stack. Again, yeah, not something to spend, exactly, Yagni. It's not something to spend a lot of time on right now. Okay, I think we have the order corrected here. Again, it looks really ugly with this array bit in here, but like I feel like we have that stacked up the way we want. So I got about 10 minutes left. Let's see if we can get into this request object here. And let's do some parsing on create, at least for maybe string data. So maybe we could say something like, what could we do here? For data, it's kind of a requirement of curl, again, unless it starts with a opening curly brace, that you do key value pairs. That's just how the -d command works. And for now, -d is the only way to kind of get that type of data in there. So I think what we can do, data is going to be an array. We could loop over that array. Yeah, this is interesting. Let's not worry about the JSON right now. What we would need to do is we would kind of need to loop over that data, call string or parse string on it, and then flatten that array effectively. Now this could get weird depending on how you're doing it, but again, PHP kind of requires you to kind of clean that up a bit. So, PHP. Let's write an example here. This is where tests are going to come in and help. Let's say I called curl with foo equals bar, but then I called curl here with like key, and then whatever one, and then I also called it with like key 2. I'm just kind of wondering, or even worse, I'm just kind of wondering how this would look. Oh man, come on 69 mega, leave me alone. They're on to me. Okay, so -d. So here's kind of the example. This kind of gets kind of weird in the fact that like, you could split that out with parse string, but when you went to do an array merge, you'd kind of have to like merge recursive on that or something as you mapped that data. So it gets a little funky is all. So let's do this. If you have data, to do handle JSON payload. But for now, we could just collect data, map that into str that's I don't know if you can map into a global function in PHP. Can you do that? I don't know if I can like higher order call like parse string. I don't think you can do that because it maps it on the data object itself. Can you map it into a lower function? Let's find out real quick. This is kind of fun. Whoops, not that. Get out of there. This. Higher order messages. Or well, it wouldn't really be higher order. It'd be more about, can you call map and just simply pass it a reference to the name of the PHP function. I know you can do that with array map, but I don't know if you can do that with this. Whatever. Anyway, we'll just do fn parse string with data. All right, and then we would need to, why doesn't it like me here? That's a string. Oh, it takes a result? Void return. If the second parameter array is present, the variables are stored as array elements instead. Parses the string into variables. What is it? Wait, how does this not... Am I crazy? How does this return something? Parses a string as if the second parameter, variables are stored in this variable as array elements instead. Using this function with hours is highly discouraged. I don't understand why it just doesn't return the array. I completely missed that. That's blowing my mind. Why isn't it just parse the URL and return as path info, generate? That's crazy. That is kind of blowing my mind. Well, let's see how far it gets us anyway. So we're gonna have to, this gets a little bit gross. Let's just make this a long closure here. I think, yeah, because we're gonna need like, we're actually gonna end up returning. This is just amazing. Output equals that. Parse output, return output. That is gross. And then we would merge recursive. I guess we would flatten and then merge recursive. Let's just see what flatten gives us. We would flatten it, and then I wonder almost if we need to reduce it. I kind of feel like reduce is kind of probably going to be the way to go here, but we'll just say all for now. Or does flatten automatically return an array? No, it returns a collection. Okay, so then we need all the items out of that. So let's just see what this gives us. So it did take that out, but it didn't necessarily make it key value pairs, and I think that's because of the flatten. So let's take out flatten. And now we get an array of arrays. So we do need flatten, but what we would really need would be like a flat map. But that's equally as gross. Yeah, it's kind of like a flat map, if you will. What does flat map take? I think the callback takes the like the accrual or whatever they call that, the carry. Flat map. Array map. Hey, there we go. That's fancy. Values and then flatten all. Name Sally school. Oh, it only, yeah, flat map would kind of be like after the fact. We would kind of flat map with an array merge, if you will. That is possible. Let me just demonstrate what I'm talking about here. Let's throw on this key bar thing. So the problem is key only takes 2 here, because as we loop over it and as we end up flattening that, it just overwrites the previous array item. So even though if we go take a look here, if I like just do a simple dump of data before we kind of see what's going on here, I'll probably have to stop on kind of a broken state, but let's just dump this real fast. So this is actually collecting everything, but the problem is currently the way we're looping over this key is an array, but it's the last array. So we're really going to need to, like, this is where I was talking about that array merge recursive. It's really going to need to kind of like explode these and then kind of reduce them or flat map them as it does like an array recursion. And I think reduce is going to be the way to go because it has that carry. Yeah, it has that carry that I'm always going to want to kind of like array merge recursive with. Although I do think array merge recursive, I do think it takes like, yeah, a full amount of arrays. So you could even go so far as to do something like really crazy here where you just kind of like, you might not even want to use a collection pipeline at all. You might just want to like array map, and then that's going to give you like the data as arrays or something. And then you could say array merge recursive and then splat that data as arrays to pass them all in as arguments. And this is kind of like this data. I think the collection pipeline, this is one of those rare examples where a collection pipeline could do it, but it actually makes it more complicated. Just because of like the nature of this particular method and the fact that like you really need to nail the right set of either multiple methods, multiple collection methods, or a single collection method, which ends up just calling these things anyway. So I feel like this is probably more the way to go. So yeah, I'm gonna toy with this a little bit more off stream. I'll definitely make sure to cover it again next Wednesday as I continue kind of part 3 of this. But I think my goal will be to kind of clean this up to where these two are working. I'll probably go ahead and make a commit if anybody else wants to tack onto that. And then I think what I'm gonna do after that is probably focus on the testing layer, and because it's going to be a lot easier to just be adding these examples as we go than to keep kind of messing around on the command line. So I think that's going to be maybe something I do off stream. That way we're ready to jump right in part 3 and start driving out more of these pieces. Because I'd really like to get this in a place where it does at least simple post data with headers. I think at that point it's like, 0.1 worthy to release, and then more people can help contribute. And there's enough of a foundation there on these classes to kind of mimic the stuff. I can have the linting in place and get the tests running on GitHub Actions. So I think that'll be the focus in part 3. Again, I might do some cleanup here off stream, but then I'll wait for Wednesday to do more. So again, if anybody wants to jump in and contribute for more options or whatever, as you see this, it's out here. Laravel Shift/curl-converter. It's open sourced, and as we saw, JT's already been adding to it. So thanks for kind of playing around. Like I said, just kind of an impromptu stream here. But again, we'll carry on Wednesday with a part 3 and get a little more into these additional options. So thanks everyone. Have a good weekend.